Hi guys, this is going to be the tutorial that's going to show you how to make this V-stitch cluster slouch hat. To do this hat, you're going to need 4-ply yarn or 10-ply yarn for Australia, and also I used a 5mm hook or a size H hook for the US. If you're wondering about this kind of yarn that I'm using, it's from Turkey. I'll leave the link on the pattern. I'll try to remember to leave it underneath the video as well. My site, it'll have the number and everything else. I did for the variegated yarn. I didn't do it for the blue yarn, but it's by the same company. And if you want that number, their color number is K658. So if you're interested in that. And this, I just used regular color yarn. I used kind of like a brown mix for the rim of the hat, and then I just did kind of a rose color mixed with white, and then I just kind of incorporated that. I have a good picture of this if you want to repeat the same kind of pattern that I did here. This is a little longer version because of the pattern I was trying to do. It's a little longer than this other hat that I made originally. So go ahead and grab your yarn, grab your hook, and we'll get started. Okay, the multiple of this hat is 64 chains. If you want to go smaller, you can, but just make sure that the number that you use is divisible by 8. So you're going to be doing in sets of 8. I'm doing a size 64. Because around that size tends to fit about everybody. Even if it's a little loose, it still fits about everybody. So I did 50 chains so far, so I've got to do 14 more. Make sure when you're doing your chains that you don't do tight, because this is going to be the gripper around the forehead, and you don't want it to be so tight. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Okay, so now I have my total of 64. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to follow it right from, let me get a little closer here. I'm going to follow it, the chain facing this way. Drop your hook down. You just want to follow it down with your fingers, and then you can also just pull it from your fingers, making sure that you keep this front of the chain from twisting, and if it does, you can correct it immediately, and then now the rest is fine. So now I've got the end, and now I'm going to grab my chain. You want it to be in a loop like this, so I just turned my chain slightly this way, so when I grab my hook on this side, I can grab up this piece. And then I'm going to go right into that top loop. And then I'm going to slip stitch through that stitch and through the loop on my hook. Then lay it down. And just make sure that everything is good, nothing is twisted. And mine is fine. People say they have a difficult time making sure this doesn't get twisted. I've got one little problem spot here that seems to want to twist. Well, this is straight, straight, straight. Starts to twist a bit there. Straight, straight. Okay, I'm going to undo it, because I can see it's already trying to twist, so I'm going to flatten it down for myself again. Okay, grabbing up my loop from this side. Now I'm going to attempt it again. This time I'm going to go through my other top loop because it's the right. I'm going to check it before I slip stitch. Okay, now everything is good. Everything's flat. Okay, now slip stitch again through the stitch and slip stitch through the loop. Checking everything is good. Everything is good this time. So glad I double checked. Okay, once you've got it connected, let me get a little closer. I always forget which way, so I'm gonna do, yep, the opposite of what I was wanting to do. I always tend to zoom out when I'm trying to zoom in. Okay, so now that we have it connected and it's not twisted, you want to chain 1, and you want to double crochet in the same stitch that we just slip stitched into. So go ahead and yarn over, go into that same stitch we just slip stitched into, and do a double crochet. We're going to be ignoring the chains of this round. Basically the chain 1 and the double crochet that's worked in the same stitch will all count as one big stitch, because we're going to be doing back post and front post double crochet, so you need to remember that. When you work that stitch, you're going to be working the whole thing. So once you got the first one done, yarn over, go into your next chain and double crochet. And you're going to be double crocheting all the way around. 1 double crochet in each stitch around. I had 64 chains, so by the end of it I should have 64 double crochets. Oh, a quick tip I want to tell you, if you didn't know this, if you have a difficult time making a loose chain at the beginning of your afghans or the beginning of your hats, you can go up 1 hook size. So say I used a 5mm hook size H hook just to make the chain itself. If you have a difficult time keeping it loose, you can go up to a 6mm or size J hook just to make the chain, and then when we start doing our chain 1 and doing our double crochets, we'd switch back to the actual project size hook. And 64. And I just want to make sure I have 64, so I'm going to count. Remember that chain 1 and double crochet counts as 1, so that'll be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60, 64. Okay, once you have the original number of stitches that you made your chain for, you want to slip stitch not in the chain space, but in the top of the first double crochet that we made. So go underneath the stitch of that and slip stitch. And that will end row 1. By the way, we're making the rim of the hat first, if you haven't figured that out yet. This is the part that will go around the head. So for round 2, you want to chain 1, and you're going to be doing a back post double crochet on this first big stitch here. So go ahead and yarn over, and you're going to be going into the space before the stitch, and then you're going to push that stitch back as you go into the space on the other side of the stitch. Now you want to yarn over and pull through. That's okay, I'm not showing you very well, and I'm not doing it very well at this angle. Yarn over, go in through the stitch, go back out through the other stitch, and then I pull through. It's so hard just to show you that. Oh, I know what I'll do. I'll show you from the back. So I'm going to yarn over, push it through, then you can see the back of the stitch and my 2 loops here. So I'm going to yarn over, pull through the stitch itself, leaving 3 loops on my hook. Then I'll yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And you can see now that this is pulled back. Your next stitch, you need to do a double crochet, a back post double crochet as well. So yarn over, go now into the space before the next stitch, and then push it back while you're going to the space of the next. And then you have your stitch and 2 loops on your hook again, so yarn over, pull through the stitch, then yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. That's how you do a back post double crochet. So the first 2 stitches are back post double crochet, and then the next 2 stitches will be front post double crochet, and this is called the post. So yarn over, go into the stitch before, pick up the post of the stitch, then again yarn over, pull through the stitch, 3 loops on your hook, you'll yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and do that one more time. Yarn over, pick up the post of the next stitch, yarn over, pull through the stitch, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Now you have 2 back post double crochets, 2 front post double crochets, and that's going to be your pattern for the row. Once you do 2 front, you do 2 back, then you do 2 front, 2 back. So we just did our 2 front posts, so now we're going to do our 2 back. So again, you go forward, push that post back, then pull the yarn through it, and then you do your double crochet as normal. Yarn over, pull the next one back, do your double crochet as normal. Yarn over, pull the post forward, then work as normal. 2 front, 2 back. So you want to continue this pattern all the way down your row. Okay, I'm getting down to my last few stitches here. My last 2 front post. And some of you might be wondering, why did I have you do multiples of 8 when clearly the stitches are 4? The reason why I said 8 is because the first time I did this with 60 stitches, and when I got up to the end, these back posts, it ended with back post 2, so I had 4 back posts in a row. So in order for it to end on the opposite of the stitches where you started, so your 2 back posts won't be 2 back posts on this side too, is to do in multiples of 8. Okay, so at the end of this row, again, you want to find that very first stitch, and I know it may be difficult to find. You can turn it this way. See, these are the stitches. Find this first stitch to slip stitch into. That will end row 2. Sorry, round 2. We're working in the round. Okay, for round 3. Okay, round 3 and 4 will be the same, so I'm going to show you how to do it, and then I'm going to go ahead and do round 3 and 4 off camera, and I'll be back here for round 5. So I'm going to show you how you will begin round 3 and round 4. It'll be the same. So go ahead and chain 1 like you always do. Yarn over. Now we're going to find that first double crochet, and if you can see your 2 stitches down here, that's your first row. So above these 2 stitches here is the row you just did. So you're going to want to find that very first back post double crochet. And remember, you're including the chain here on the side as well. So this one, you're going to have to go kind of a little bit far back to find this first space. And then push it forward. See the chain 1 and the double crochet. And you're going to do a front post double crochet on this first back post double crochet. Then yarn over, get the next back post double crochet, and then you'll work a front post double crochet on that as well. We're going to be doing the opposite of what we did last row. All the places where you have a front post, you're going to be doing a back post. So these 2 stitches will now become a back post. Then you have the next 2 stitches where you'll be working a front post. And you'll continue this all the way around. And when you get up here to the end, again, make sure you slip stitch to end your row in the actual stitch, not in the chain 1 space. And then you're going to be working, staying with the front post. So again, for rounds 4, you'll be doing a front post, front post. I'll just come back here and remind you whenever I get to the end of this row. And we'll begin the next row. I guess we'll begin round 4 together. So continue turning your front post double crochets into back post double crochets this row, and your front post, and your back post to front. This stitch that I'm using here is from a tutorial called I think it was basket weave number 3. I believe. I did a series of back post double crochets, 3 different ways that you can do them, and this was one of the ways. It was either basket weave stitch 2 or 3, and I thought that looked really cool, but I wanted to make a hat where it was the rim, if not the hat itself. I really like that texture right on the rim of the hat. So go ahead and continue this all the way around, and I'll go ahead and I'll show you how to begin row 4. Okay, I'm coming to the end of my row here. into row 3. Yeah, beep beep to you, dude. I don't know if y'all can hear that beeping guy outside. He's got a friend now. Okay, so I just did my last back post, and again you want to slip stitch into the beginning when this is a front post double crochet. So now would be a good time, if you wanted to go ahead and put this rim on your head. See how it fits, make sure it's not too tight. And once you got it and you think it's good, because now would be a good time to rip it out if it's too loose or too tight. And if it's all good, you're ready to keep going for round 4. You're gonna chain 1, and we're gonna continue on with our front post and back post. So we're gonna be putting front post on our front post. And remember, this first stitch you're gonna have kind of big, because you're going to do the chain and the front post at the same time. And then the next one will be not so big. So you'll have 2 front posts on your first 2, and then 2 back posts worked on the next. Basically you do the same as you did last row. The only difference is now you're working the stitch you're working on. Instead of it being back post where you put your front post, you're putting your front post on your front post, which is so much easier. So you just want to continue all the way around. We're going to have 5 rows as part of the rim, so you're almost done. Then we're going to get to the fun stitch part. So go on and finish this row. I'll show you how to do your last row, round 5, when you get done. And my hook went flying, my furls hook, and for some reason it got me thinking about that show, that movie Dumbo. Remember that song that the crow sings? I just about seen about everything when I see an elephant fly. God, it's deep. Anyway, and it got me thinking, that that's something that I would watch while I would crochet as a kid. And it got me thinking, wow, I was crocheting since I was really small. And so I thought about posing the question to you. How long have you been crocheting? Is this something new? Or maybe you knew somebody who used to crochet, like maybe your grandma or your mom used to watch them, and now you're trying to learn how to do it yourself right now. I'd really like to know. What's your story? I also have a group on Facebook. Yeah, you can find the link down below. Come over there and share your story. I'd love to see it. Okay, so I got to the very end of my row, and again I'm going to slip stitch in that very first front post double crochet. And for your 5th and final round of your rim, you want to chain 1, and again we're going to do the opposite. So this row, everywhere that you have a front post, you're going to be doing your back post, and all the places where you have your back post, you'll be doing the front post. And again, remember, first one you're getting the chain and the front post. Oh, I'm supposed to be doing back post. So I'm coming from behind, push that back. And then carefully get it back there. Pull through 2, pull through 2. It's hard to do the first one. The second one's going to be much easier. And then do your 2 front posts and your back post. Then 2 back posts on your front post. So you want to continue this pattern all the way around. And then when you get to the end of round 5, I'll bring you back here and then we'll start on the stitch part of the hat. Okay, I'm just finishing up my last front post double crochet, and I'm going to slip stitch in my beginning back post double crochet, and that will end round 5. If you want to switch colors now, I just want to do a quick tutorial real quick to show you. I just need some yarn. Here. Okay, it's blue. It's probably not the best. Wait, I think actually I have another color here. Okay, so it's also on the blue section of the variegated. I can't win for losing. Okay, so let me just show you with this one. So if you wanna switch colors, you can do that pretty easily. All you have to do is grab up your next color that you want to use, and then just put your finger here just to fold it in half. You don't actually have to use your finger. Just bend it, and then this here will become your new loop. So you can hold it here, put it on your hook, slip it through the loop, and then now you just grab your old color to tighten up the loop, and then just pick up your new yarn, and then just chain one, make sure the other one is secure, and then you're ready. Whoops, and then you're ready to begin. But I'm not going to change colors, so I'm going to leave it with my old one. It's pretty easy to do. I just always recommend that you leave a bit of a tail wherever that you have your yarn, where you begin or end your yarn. Always cut to leave a tail, and don't just work it into your crochet project, because it will come loose. Even if it won't at the beginning, it looks nice, it will come loose, especially when you're using it on things that people wear. They will stretch it, it will come loose. Get a tapestry needle and use those to work it in your pattern. And if you can, work it in one way and then still leave enough of a tail to go back in and work it the other way. To go two different ways is even a better way to secure your tails. You can always cut if you have too much. Before starting this row too far, if you just get another color of yarn and just cut a little bit of it, they make a really good place marker. You can just fold them in half like this. Find the beginning of your row, like for me is here. You can get that very first stitch underneath your very first stitch here. Do like we did before, like when we're changing rows, but you're going to be pulling it through the stitch itself. And then with your loop on your hook, you're just going to wrap it around and pull those tails through that loop. You don't have to be tight, but pull it all the way through, and now you have a bit of a tail here that you can use as your marker. Okay, I did 2 single crochets, and now where I would usually do 2 chains to cover these 2 stitches, when you get to the end of the row, it's going to be different. At the very end of your row, you're only going to be chaining 1 instead of 2. The reason for this is because when you slip stitch in your very beginning stitch, which I'm going to do right here, this is my beginning chain 1 and single crochet. I'm just going to go right into that single crochet, and I'm going to slip stitch to end my row. And if you notice, while you're making that slip stitch, you just essentially made another chain. So chain 1, and then when you slip stitch, you're creating your second chain here for this space. Because if you chain 2 and then slip stitch, then you're going to have a wider space here. You'll have like essentially 3 chains there. So that's why we do that at the end of your row, and you'll always do that at the end of your row. For round 7, this is where we're beginning our stitch part, the V clusters. You're going to be chaining 3, and then we're going to move on over. We're going to skip these first single crochets and move over to our chain 2 spaces, which we'll be working with this whole row. And in this chain 3 space, you're going to be doing your clusters, your double crochet clusters. So what you're going to do is just like double crochet decrease, but all worked in the same space. I don't know if you've ever done that, but what you do is you yarn over, you go into the chain 3 space, pick up a loop, but you're going to yarn over and only pull through 2, leaving that last loop on your hook. Then do that again 2 more times. Yarn over, go into the chain 3 space, pull up a loop, pull through only 2, leaving the last loop on your hook. Do that 1 more time. Yarn over, go into the space, pull up a loop, and then yarn over, only pull through 2. Now when you have 3 incomplete double crochets here, 4 loops on your hook, you're going to yarn over and pull through all 4 of those loops. And then you're going to chain 2. You're going to make another just like this, in the same chain 3 space. We chain 2 in between the 2 clusters. So you got your cluster, chain 2, work 1 more cluster. So yarn over, go into the chain 2 space, chain 2 space. Was I saying chain 3? Sorry, chain 2 space. Then you go through only 2 loops, yarn over, go into the chain 2 space, pull up a loop, pull through only 2, yarn over, go into the chain 2 space, pull up a loop, only pull through 2. 3 incomplete double crochets on your hook, 4 loops, yarn over, pull through all 4 loops, and that completes your stitch. And that's how you'll do your stitch in every single chain 2 space of this row. But when you go from one complete, because this is one complete stitch made up of 1 cluster, chain 2, 1 cluster, then you'll move over to your next set. So, but between sets, you will not chain. You only chain in between the 2 clusters here when you're working in the same stitch. So what you need to do is just move right over to the next one without chaining. Just yarn over, go into the chain 2 space, pull up a loop, only pull through 2. Do that 2 more times until you have 3 incomplete double crochets, 4 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through all 4. Now you'll chain 2 because we're still working in the same set. Yarn over, go in the chain 2 space, pull up a loop, only pull through 2. Do that 2 more times. 3 incomplete double crochets, 4 loops on your hook, pull through all 4 loops, and then you finished your second double crochet cluster. So you have 2. Now you just move on over to the next and repeat. So you want to repeat this stitch all the way around. Chain 2 in the same stitch. Then I'm done. You want to continue this all the way around. Okay, I'm getting down to I'm down to my last little space here, my last chain 2 space. Put my last cluster here. Really like this stitch. Okay, once I finish the last cluster, I'm going to skip this chain 3 here, and you're going to go right into the very first cluster and slip stitch to end your row. And as you can see, this chain 2, the chain 3, when you slip stitch into the stitch, it kind of blends in that chain 3 into the cluster, so it's not noticeable. Kind of makes it more invisible. Okay, so I'm going to show you the next row, which is row 8, right? Yeah, and then it's going to start repeating. So I'm going to show you how to work into your stitch this row. So you want to chain 1. Now we're going to be working like we did here before. We're going to be working our single crochet in chain 2 spaces. So we're going to chain 1 to begin this row, and we're going to move right into, actually, I'll chain 1 and single crochet in this first cluster, in this chain 2 space in between our cluster set. I'm going to do 2 single crochets, then chain 2, skip on over to your next. So you'll be skipping the space in between the clusters, between the 2 cluster sets, and you're going to be working in your chain 2 spaces in between your clusters here that you worked all in the same stitch. So move on over to the next one and put 2 single crochets in that one, chain 2, move over to your next one here, put 2 single crochets in that one, chain 2, move over to your next, and you want to continue this all the way around. So continue on for round 8, and I'll see you when you get done. Okay, so I'm at the very end of my row. I've got my last 2 single crochets worked in my my cluster, my V cluster. So again, at the very end of your row, you're going to want to only chain 1 and then slip stitch in the very first single crochet of your row, and that will create your chain 2 space here right on the end. Okay, now we have to repeat rows 7 and 8 over and over again. So we're going to back up on the pattern here, go back to row 7, and it says to chain 3 and DC cluster in your first chain 2 space. So we're going to move over till we find our first chain 2 space, and we're going to work our first double crochet cluster there, chain 2, and do your second double crochet cluster. And then you're going to move right over to your next chain 2 space here and work your next V cluster. So you want to continue that all the way around, and as you can see, you're kind of going catacorner a little bit now. It'll be back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. See how this is one, and then this is one, kind of going, whoops, backwards, diagonal. So continue this all the way around. Next row, you're going to be doing your single crochets again, worked in this chain 2 spaces in between each cluster here. Just like you did before, you're going to be repeating rows 7 and 8. And you're going to keep doing that. Let me go ahead and grab the other hat and I'll show you. Okay. I want to back out a little bit here for you. You want to continue that, the double crochet cluster, V cluster, until you reach a total of, I have centimeters, so from the edge of the rim, measure it from the very first stitch, very first row to the very last row you did. And you should have about 25 centimeters or 10 inches. When it reaches about that length, then it's long enough, at least for me. You can go a little longer if you want. Make it as long as you want. And then, but I'm only going till about 10 inches, and then I'll show you how to finish the top of the hat. Okay, I didn't completely close up this hat just so I could show you on film how it is when you're ready to end your hat. You're going to slip stitch in that first cluster to end your row, and then you're ready to reduce. And I have a pictorial, that's what they call it, like a tutorial with pictures. So pictorial. Anyway, I have that on my site. You can check that out. If you can't see the stitches so well, maybe you can see them in the picture a little better. So I'm just throwing it out there. Okay, so for round 1 of the reducing, you want to chain 2, and then you want to create a double crochet cluster in this first chain 2 space here between your first double crochet clusters. You're going to be doing the same thing as you did before, but you're only going to be making 1. So usually you did this, have your 4 on your loop, put through all 4 of them, and you'll chain 2 and go right back in there. But this time it's going to be a little different. You're just going to leave it single like that, and you're just going to move over to the spaces in between. Let me just make sure, yeah. I have a picture of this too on my site if you need. Also, these little stitches here that are in between the 2 clusters, also you want to do like a half a, I guess you can call it the half a DC cluster, V-stitch. Anyway, you get your 3 incomplete double crochets, and you want to pull through all 4 loops. Then you just move on to the next one and do the next cluster. Don't forget, you want to get the stitch in between the clusters and the chain 2 spaces. That's part of the set that we were doing before. And this is what it looks like. And you want to just continue this all the way around. Okay, I reached the end of my row here. I did the last, my last one I just did here in the cluster. Now the last one of the row needs to be in this space here between the first and last one. So go ahead and yarn over. There is a stitch if you'd prefer to go there, but it's up to you. I think I'm going to use the stitch because here it leaves a little line in between. So I guess I'll do that here too. I'm going to go into this last stitch of the row, put my final cluster in. Then once I got that, I'm going to slip stitch in my very first cluster to end my row. And that's your first round of reducing. Your second round is going to be using double crochet decreases. So we're going to start by chaining 2, and then you want to start double crochet decrease. And how you do that, you're going to go ahead and use the same stitch here, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 1. Then again you want to, oops, I didn't yarn over first. My bad. I'm working with double crochet, so you want to yarn over first. Then go into that stitch, pull up a loop, pull through 2. There we go. Then you yarn over, go into your next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. When you have 2 double crochets here, 3 stitches on your hook, you'll pull through all 3 of those. Then you're going to move over to your very next stitch, yarn over, go into the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through only 2. Then yarn over, go into your next stitch, pull up a loop, only pull through 2. 2 double crochets on your hook, 3 loops on your hook, pull through all 3 loops. Again, yarn over, go into the next stitch, pull up a loop, only pull through 2. And then you'll yarn through and pull all 3. You're turning 2 stitches into 1 stitch. This is reducing the whole row. So again, yarn over, and we'll start working in your next 2 stitches, pulling through all 3. Should be a pretty fast row. But I'm going to go ahead and pause the video, let you finish this row here. And then I'll bring you back whenever I get to the end of my row. Okay, reach into my row here. Looks like I only have 1 stitch left here on the end. So I think I'm just going to do a regular double crochet in that one. And then slip stitch in your beginning double crochet decrease. Now the final round, round 3, going to chain 1, and in that same stitch put a single crochet. You want to work 1 single crochet in all stitches around and all your double crochet decreases. Your hat should be getting pretty tiny here at the top now. Try not to leave your loop so big when you're reducing, because you want it to be tighter. Single crochet, single crochet, single crochet, almost to the end. I ain't got so much yarn left because I already cut the yarn on this hat. Okay, so I'm at the beginning of my row now. This is my first single crochet. I'm just going to go ahead and there's a stitch here, but the thing is reducing, you're not going to see so much, so I'm just going to go ahead and find the first single crochet of my row and do a slip stitch. Then go ahead and chain 1, and this is where you want to leave a tail, a long tail. I already cut mine. Just leave a long tail enough to sew, And remember, you want to work those in later too, so with a tapestry needle, so you definitely want to leave a long tail. So once you've chained one and you cut your tail, then you can just pull out your loop and then pull it to tighten it. Now you can put your hook away, and you want to grab your tapestry needle now. You want to turn your hat inside out, so go ahead and find the tail and bring it in the hat and pull your hat inside out. Then we're going to go ahead and thread our needle. Then find the front, and it's pulling towards this way, but it doesn't really matter which way it's going. But this is where you're, let me get a little closer. This is where you're connected into this stitch. So you just want to find the next stitch, next single crochet, and come up through it. And then the next stitch, you want to go the other way. You want to go in. Then the next stitch, you want to go the other way. You want to come from the back. And then the next one, you want to go in through the front. Next one, out through the back. You want to continue to weave through the last row of single crochets that we did. We're creating a pulley that will squeeze, that we can pull, and it will close our hat. You can also go through a few like really quick. Like you can go through one like this, then come up through the next, go through one like this, come up to the next, kind of weave it yourself, and then you can pull through multiple at the same time, which I recommend doing it that way. But once you've got it, you've reached the very first stitch of your row again, what you can do is just pull, and it will tighten your hole. Tighten it to where it's completely closed, and then you can see the hole here. What you want to do is now start working. Since it's already attached on this side, I'm going to go to its opposite on the other side and find some place to put my needle and pull it through. Then I'm going to come from this opposite side. I just went like this, so now I'm going to do on the cross side. Come from this side of the hole to the other side, and you want to stay, you don't want to go too deep, because remember, this is going to be the very tip of your hat. So don't pull it too tight, just enough to close the hole. And I'm going to do that again. I'm going to go up and then through the side. And once I do it this very last time, I'm going to leave a little bit of a loop here going, and I'm going to put my loop through there and tighten it. And then I'm going to do that one more time. This time I'm going to take this loop and take my excess string here, and I'm going to use the rest of my loop and my tail to just tie a couple of knots there. And then you use your tapestry needle to hide your tail. And you can do the same thing with the front as well. And I also like to grab my loop here that's on the end while I hide it, so that I can kind of secure it down a little bit while I hide my tail. Not such a big deal because it's on the inside. Once you have done that several times, go ahead and cut it. I think it's probably good enough just to leave a little bit of a tail here. You don't have to hide the other tail. Turn your hat inside out. That's where we sewed. And then of course I'll have to take out my marker and hide my tail on the end of my other project, not this one, but you will. But that's it, then your hat will be complete. So that's it, guys. I really hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. It was really fun doing a project with you guys again. If you enjoyed it too, please leave a comment down below. And please join us over there on the Facebook group. I'd really like to see y'all over there. Thank you for those who become my patron. Thank you so much for that. It really helps me to be able to know how much money that I have to set for advertising that month and everything. I cannot tell you enough how much you guys, my patrons, help me out. So thank you for that. Also, if you always want to be notified if you're new on my channel and you want to know whenever I release new videos, you can go to my main YouTube page, and right next to the subscribe button there's a little bell button you can click to always be notified whenever I release a new tutorial. If you're wanting to know what kind of hook I was using in this video, it's a wooden furls hook, and they also come out a little far. There we go. It's a wooden furls hook that I have, and I ordered it with an extended hook. If not, it'll only come with half the size. And I also got a wooden, this is the new line that they came out with. It's called the Streamline, and it's a size, one size smaller, 4mm. This is a size 5. And it naturally comes much longer. I ordered it with an extended hook too, thinking it was going to be about this size, and wow, look, it's much bigger. So that's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching.